for public records and will be posted on the Arlington County Commission's YouTube page. Just let everyone in first. And please avoid sharing any personal information that you would not like to have made public. We ask that presenters and attendees please mute your microphones if you're not speaking. During virtual only or hybrid meetings, commissioners joining virtually or who are eligible to vote must have their cameras on for the duration of the meeting for purposes of meeting quorum. For those attending via telephone, you can mute and unmute your microphones by dialing *6. The chat box will be monitored to address any technical or procedural questions during the meeting, but should not be used for a meeting discussion. Commissioners should use the raise your hand function on the top toolbar to be recognized during the commission discussion. And assigned presenters may share their screens using the share content box above. As way of information, we'll be holding a public comment period. I'll let more folks in. In order to be recognized, please use the raise your hand function if you're joining virtually. And each public commenter will have up to 3 minutes for public comment, and we will actually be holding very strict to that. So I will let the speakers know when their time has begun and when it has elapsed. During the public comment period and during the agenda item discussions among the PRC, the chair will recognize virtual participation first, and then in-person attendees will be able to comment. Thank you very much, and I will turn it back over to our chair.
Thank you, Marco. And the first item on our agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from November 18th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. William seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to approve the votes, approve the minutes by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. All right, we're ready for public comment.
All right, our first public commenter is Judy Edwards, followed by Richard Reb. So, Ms. Richards, we will provide you 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes for public comment, and your time will start right now.
Did you call Judy Edwards or
For
Judy?
sure, Judy Richards, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I live in the representative condo on Arlington Ridge Road that overlooks the public space between N1 and N2. I'm here to ask you to reject the interim plan, which occupies only 1/3 of the final plan. The handicap ramp with 11 switchbacks will be unsafe, with wheelchairs users sharing it with pedestrians, joggers, bicyclists, and scooters. People sitting on benches will only add to the mix. Commuters to Metro will experience increased travel times from having to navigate the tediously complex switchbacks. Instead of the interim plan, the full open space should be built when N1 is completed. This is an important community benefit that cannot wait until the N2 building is built, which will be many years in the future, if ever. The final plan needs to be redesigned, though, to provide a plaza at Joy Street. This is what the community asked for and expected when the planning department required JBG to make the open space the same width as West Coast Plaza. The new plaza will complete West Coast Plaza, and the two will form a town square for our community and add vitality to the Joyce streetscape. It will increase county tax revenues from a new cafe, restaurants, and special events on the plaza. It'll add value to the surrounding buildings, which are particularly important to us on the Arlington Ridge condo line, because our values are going to be devastated by the ugly and noisy N1 rooftop with 579 exposed mechanical units. Some surface parking spaces will be eliminated in the redesign to make way for the open space, but the existing underground parking lot need not be disturbed. The current upward slope of the land can easily accommodate the plaza and more gradual handicapped ramps. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Richard Reb, followed by Shay Weinblatt. Mr. Reb, your time has started.
Hello, I'm Richard Reb. I live in the 22202 zip code. which is governed by the Arlington Ridge Civic Association, which recently did a vote and has voted overwhelmingly against this PDSP. Let me explain to you why I think this is a bad deal and why you as the park commissions can improve it. This property is governed today by a 1998-2000 existing PDSP that allowed Vornado, who previous owner, to build up to 830 units on the site. In exchange for that privilege, they basically created what we know today as Grace Hopper Memorial Park. They had to invest $500,000 in the development of that park and public art, and they had to pay the maintenance of that. The county got a perpetual easement to that land. What JBG wants to do is to vacate all of that and create a new deal. So the new deal is basically to build 2,790 units, more than 3 times what was previously. They are planning to increase the Grace Hopper Park by 0.76 acres, so it's 2.77 acres. They're adding 1.5 acres for a future James Park along 395, and they're having the 1 acre between N1 and N2. So let's break that down. The previous PDSP for 1.99 acres granted the right to build 830 units. The new one is 5.35 acres for the right to build 2,790 units, less of half of which will be realized in the near term, and which the county is required to pay to upkeep because you're now getting the fee. So said another way, Grace Hopper Park is retransferred for 830 units. That leaves an additional 1,960 new units for which the county is only getting 3.36 acres, which based on the previous ratio is short by 1.34 acres to be equivalent to that. Plus you're paying for the development of those parks, which you didn't have to under the previous deal. So I would say it's not a good deal for Arlington. You need to increase the amount of parkland here by 1.34 acres. Now, relative to that, the green ribbon doesn't count as far as parkland. Riverhouse today has walkways that are more green than the green ribbon is ever going to be. The green ribbon was created to address the planning problems of the mall, which has little walkways within it. Second, this area of Arlington is, if you look at heat maps, because of the Pentagon, because of 395, is an area that particularly needs parkland and greenland. So it's appropriate today. So, and historically, this area is an area to view Washington, D.C. The big vista they talk about in this plan of looking down from the Arlington Ridge to Virginia Highlands Park, that is not the vista that is significant in this area. It's the view of Washington, which the 22-story buildings are going to block for 100 condominium owners on the hill. So as the Parks Commission, I would urge you to stand up.
Mr. Rep. Thank you. Our next public commenter is Shay Weinblatt. Shay? Is Shay on the line? Okay. Are there any other public commenters online that would like to address any topic? All right, I think that concludes our public comment period.
Do we have any other public comments in the room? Okay. Great, thank you so much for those comments. We really appreciate the citizen engagement and we will take those under advisement. And now we will turn our attention inward and have our discussion. That's going to be a presentation first, I think, by staff for a few minutes and then by JBG Smith. So Ryan,
Sure.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think the presentation is probably too grand for the introduction that I'm about to provide. So
Name, title.
yes, my name is Ryan Delaney. I'm a principal planner on the long range planning team, Department of Parks and Recreation. And Chair Barker asked me to provide a little bit of an introduction and background description of the project before we hand it off to the applicant for their presentation, just since the project may be new to some of you all. So I'll try to keep it brief because I know we have a full agenda. So just at a basic level, the River House Neighborhood Project is, you need me to?
We don't see you on the camera.
All right. Stand at my imaginary podium if that.
There we go.
Thank you.
Okay, so the River House Neighborhood Project is a site plan project in the Pentagon City area. It's part of the implementation of the Pentagon City Sector Plan. And the overall project is what we call a phased development site plan, or PDSP. The PDSPs are used for large or complex sites like River House. and are sort of a master plan for the entire site being considered. They include a high-level look at things like site layout, different amenities and community benefits, and then the actual development of the site will be phased and implemented through final site plans, which will be submitted to the county for review and approval of each new phase we're building. For River House, a lot of the design elements, site layout, public spaces, and community benefits being proposed were recommended by the Pentagon City Sector Plan. And then going before the board this month for consideration is the PDSP that I mentioned, and they're all planned, as well as final site plans for 2 new multifamily buildings and 1 area of townhouses on site, as well as a site plan for the existing buildings. You'll see the new buildings referred to as Building N1, Building C1, and Land Bay S for the townhouses, respectively. The rest of the development proposed in the PDSP, again, that overarching plan, and the public spaces and other community benefits associated with the full scope of development would be come in the future with new final site plans for each new phase of development, if that makes sense. So it's a really quick primer, but with that, turn it over to the applicant team to give you all more details on what's actually being proposed.
Excuse me, before you guys get started, I just want to make sure, does everybody understand what Ryan just said? Because it bears on what we'll be discussing.
Anything in specific you're talking about, you understand? Or
The difference between the phase development site plan for the whole 36 acres or however much it is versus the individual site plan. So those 2 things are being considered tonight for the smaller site plan, and then there will be additional site plans in the phases. That's the vocabulary word we're working with.
Like the rest of the 2,000 units. Or
Say it louder.
for the rest of the 2,000 units, whatever, like 1960, right? That's the future phasing.
I don't know the numbers, but there is a future phase. Okay, everybody with us?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
And
please.
thanks, Madam Chair. We'll talk about that a little bit in our proceedings. You want me to stand up here so you can see me on the camera? Fine.
I'm not gonna make it.
Okay. Thank you.
I made Ryan do
Glad
it.
you made Ryan do it. Great. Well, thank you all for being here on a chilly evening. Appreciate your time. My name is Kedrick Whitmore. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Venable LLP, and we're excited to bring you our presentation for the River House neighborhood. So on the next slide, wanted to go through a little bit of what the chair was talking about with respect to the phasing. But first, just showing you what the existing site looks like today. There are 3 existing apartment buildings, the Ashley, the James, and the Potomac, surrounded by lots and lots and lots of surface parking. And what we're really going to be doing here with the creation of this neighborhood is turning that surface parking into housing, into open space, and into pedestrian paths that can connect folks not only within the River House neighborhood, but throughout to the west from up the hill, and then to the east down to the metro. So on the next slide, you heard some reference to the PDSP, the phase development site plan versus the final site plans. This is what the full PDSP build out after everything is approved, future phases are approved, is going to look like. We've retained the existing buildings, the Ashley, the Potomac, and the James, and then infilled multifamily and townhomes on those parking lots that you see there. And then in between, we have followed the recommendations of the Pentagon City Sector Plan for green space, green ribbon, and those pathways that we'll talk about in a little more detail going forward. So on the next slide, a little more about that phasing. So advancing one more. Again, this is what that kind of full build out is going to look like. But as Ryan said, and as the chair alluded to, we are only getting final site plans. In other words, approvals that can be actionable, that can actually construct buildings for 3 areas. You can see them labeled here as Land Bay S, C1, and N1. Land Bay S are for sale townhome and 2 over 2 units. C1 and N1 are multifamily units. So on the next slide, you can see what this will look like as it builds out with what we're having approved today. So again, the existing buildings are remaining. Land Bay S will be built out. You can see that area that's shaded there. That's going to be part of the PDSP future phases. Those buildings will not be built unless and until there are additional approvals for them down the road. So we'd start with Land Bay S, and then on the next slide, buildings C1 and N1. Those are the three final site plans that we're seeking approval of today. Again, those interim spaces do not get developed unless and until there are future approvals for those buildings in the shaded areas. So then on the next slide, I will turn this over to Belle to give some more information about the open space.
Can you just clarify how
Please.
many units are represented in phase one, just roughly?
Sure, I need to check my notes to make sure I get it right. It's 100, I believe it's 135.
Okay,
for
thank you.
Land Bay S, 132. And C1 is 102. And N1 is 509.
Oh, okay.
And I think one of the things to keep in mind as we look at this, that I think gets lost sometimes is the size of this, because we look at this on a map, and it looks like every other site plan we see. This is a 36-acre site. This is a massive site. So it does kind of distort the size and scale of some of these things.
Thank you. Yeah. Please go ahead.
So, thank you, Ken. I'm Belle St. John Day, a landscape architect with Practical Science Design. And we've been working, so I'll talk more about the open space and green recreation. So on the next slide, this map presents the completed PDSP site with the green ribbon network delivering the levels of porosity and connectivity envisioned by the Pentagon City Sector Plan. And the final build out of the River House neighborhood will contain over 1 mile of green ribbon, which is 1/3 of the network envisioned for Pentagon City as a whole. The shaded areas indicate the public spaces and access for the completed site. The sector plan designates specific areas for minimum public spaces as shown on the top diagram sector plan. These areas have been achieved with the hatched area shown on the completed river house shown on the bottom. These two side-by-side images, so at the top you have the existing conditions of the river house site compared to the PDSP plan at the bottom. As Ken mentioned, building placement was prioritized where existing parking lots were located, reducing hardscape areas. And high maintenance monoculture vegetation such as lawn has been cut in approximately half and replaced with native pollinators. Next slide, please. Here we illustrate the portions of the green ribbon that will be built as part of the final site plan. The River House project will deliver a significant segment of the green ribbon early in construction with approximately 1.1 miles of pedestrian paths located within the River House site. The map also highlights additional pedestrian connections to South Glen Street that we heard for previous community engagement shown in blue, both through stairs and ADA accessible connections. Next slide, please. These visualizations show how the character of the green ribbon varies as it responds to the different conditions throughout the site, but always prioritizes clear sight lines, generous paths, and robust plantings. Next slide. And these show some of the views compared to where they are today and in the future. The green ribbon on the north is shown in the two areas. Two images to the top both show the green ribbon on the north, keeping a similar alignment to the pathway that was noted today on the site, but it expands the walkway and then creates a native pollinator corridor with overhead canopy that is missing today and a view of a parking lot that'll be significantly improved. The bottom images are taken behind the Potomac and manages an extensive invasive planting that's currently on the site and allows users to immerse themselves in a biophilic woodland walk. Next slide, please. Similar to the earlier comparison of the existing site to the PDSP site, this compares the existing conditions to the final site plans, where once again, those buildings, especially these early buildings, are placed within existing parking lots. And the native plantings you can see highlighted in green are going to reinforce the green ribbon corridors as they navigate through the site. Next slide. So of those areas that indicated for public open space, easements dedicated to the county, the first one that comes up is the N1, N2 space that will be partially realized as part of the final site plans. And so since this area was called out specifically, it's gone through and we've worked with Ryan and the rest of parks with through a public park master plan process to envision its future uses.
Can you say that one more time slower?
Sorry, so this is the area you can see at the top right is the key where the future PDSP N1 and N2 spaces.
PDSP, that's the phase development
Space
site plan.
development site.
But N1 is in the very first, but not N2. That's in a later one.
Yeah, so
So what are we talking
so
about?
with N1, part of that space will be built, but not the complete space. And so
The open space?
the open space.
Okay, okay.
And so we went ahead and did a park master plan process, community process
Okay.
to look at the overall design and consideration for programming of the space so that as we start implementing it, it's following a cohesive direction for that feedback.
And is there a reason why it won't be completely built? What is the reason?
Yeah, so there is an existing, once I said, there is an existing parking lot on the site. And so that needs to be maintained for the James building at the north end of the site. And so we need to maintain the county or the number of required spaces for that adjacent use. And so the limits of what can be built within one is defined by what it takes to maintain the existing use.
Does the park, master plan process, does that have a name or is there a park name associated with that yet?
There's not a park name, just.
No, I
What are
can
we
answer.
calling it?
For now, just, we're calling it the inner public space at N1. There will be.
Great ring.
Yeah. so-
Nice
Very,
red.
very sexy. right?
Yeah, so I guess the point about park naming, we're, from a DPR standpoint, looking to do that when the full.
Well,
plan is
yeah,
delivered.
I just wanted to know how to refer to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll come up with a better answer.
No, it's fine. Interim at N1 is fine. I gotcha. Okay, keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, yeah, so through past community engagement, we heard a desire for spaces that are flexible and able to support individuals, small gatherings, and large community events that are demonstrated with the bubble shown here. We also heard a clear call for connections to nature, native plantings, and a design that feels safe, inviting, and integrated into the public fabric. A fun challenge on the site is there is 33 feet of grade change as you go east to west on this portion of the site. And so it was a constraint, but we wanted to find a creative solution for accessibility. So we envisioned these vertical, that orange bubble sort of remove is where a lot of that grade change, vertical transition will happen. But we wanted to use it as an opportunity to layer in programming, visual interest, and biophilic elements to enrich the user experience. So the next slide shows how these bubble and organization diagrams we took from the park master plan process could be represented in a full build-out condition for the N1 and N2 space. And the spaces are designed to hold a wide variety of uses, both from quiet contemplative spaces to the opportunity for larger gatherings, while still maintaining native and layered plantings and visual access across the site. So as we go to the next slide, this was, and what I showed on the previous slides, these are the updates after the park master plan process. Some of the things we heard from the public and working with staff that changed in our design was the incorporation of more trees, and especially more trees towards the western edge of the open space to transition to the green ribbon corridor, and then more seating opportunities within those canopies. We increased access along South Joyce with an additional ramp that's highlighted in orange to provide more access and directional traffic for pedestrians entering the space. And then we added on the west side, so the left side of the screen, a smaller set of stairs for the residents at South Glen Street. We also added overhead canopies to meet year-round shading goals. Next slide, please. So as I said, there will be an interim condition because the full N1 and N2 space will not be realized with these final site plans. And so with what we wanted to build with this phase one is the priority of creating that green ribbon access from West Post up to the green ribbon, that section that we're making that goes almost entirely north-south along the Ruger House site. But we wanted to prioritize universal access. And so that's why you see ramping from South Joyce up into this public space. Because unfortunately, this is how much ramp it takes to navigate, you know, such a substantial grade change. And so we prioritize that universal access in this interim condition. Pathways in here range between 10 to 14 feet, and then additional 10 to 14 feet for plantings. Overall, this space is about 35 feet wide. Their seating areas are woven throughout to promote rest, safety, and casual social interactions, all with a naturalistic setting that begins to establish the tone for the final design.
Can I ask you how many square feet the part of the interim site that is to be realized in this phase is?
So yeah, it's about 1/3 of the final space will come in this interim condition. Right, and then next slide. So last, I want to talk about the overall sort of canopy and vegetation goals established for River House. These plans demonstrate both canopy and those at near grade vegetation goals that was proposed by this Pentagon City Sector Plan. And we're meeting and exceeding those. We've also been working with urban forestry to meet diversity and native plant goals. All trees are native, and the majority of the understory selections are also native. The western green ribbon, which is sort of the planned north edge, was prioritized as a native pollinator corridor to reinforce the woodland placemaking edge. Some selections of understory materials will remain cultivars and adaptive species to make sure we're creating a healthy site that maintains sight lines for safety, functioning stormwater management facilities, and plants that thrive in urban conditions. And the last slide is, I want to just thank you all for your attention tonight and look forward to answering any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here, and we're glad to have the opportunity to ask questions. Gary Shinners, the vice chair, has been following this on behalf of the commission. So I'll introduce Gary to moderate.
And I assume you've got a copy of questions. Okay. And I think you've answered a few of them in your presentation, so I appreciate that. And I guess before I get started, I do want to compliment you guys on biophilic goals that you set for yourself. The first one is committing to achieve the Pentagon City Sector Plan goal of 20% tree canopy coverage. Another commitment was installing, as we've been talking about, one primary green ribbon segment and 3 secondary green ribbon segments. And I appreciate those will be phased in over time. That those will not all be created in space. Another commitment was, touched on this in your presentation, for removing the non-native invasive plants that more or less permeate the entirety of the western border of the property. I would like to come back to that a little bit later so that we can talk about backfilling that property with native plants, because it's essential to do that immediately upon removal of the non-native invasives. Otherwise, the non-native invasives will have a competitive advantage over our natives in reclaiming that property. And I understand also that there's a commitment to have dark sky compliant lighting and anti-bird strike window glazing in the new buildings that are going to be phased in. And lastly, there is a commitment to donate to Arlington County acreage that will be made available upon the rerouting to South Joyce Street. So as to that donation of property, I wanted to try, if possible, to be a little bit more specific in terms of the total acreage being donated. So I don't know if you can pull up one of your maps that has the Grace Hopper Park I displayed. That I think would assist us in having a sense of what's going to be donated. And believe at some point this evening, someone mentioned that the county has a permanent easement over Grace Hopper Park. Okay. So, but it's also my understanding that the entirety of Grace Hopper Park will not be donated to the county, or do I have that wrong?
So great questions, and it's an important one, and I'll make sure to first say that this is all happening in a future phase, part of the PDSP. This is not happening as part of the final site.
Understood.
Any of that part. So, what's happening here? So what's there today? There's an easement over a portion. Sorry, Emma, can you go to the existing? Great. So there's an easement over a portion of this, not all of it.
Okay.
And none on this part, right, through here. So what's going to be happening is in the future phases, I think what the county has said is, hey, look, we have a lot of interest in having contiguous open spaces. And so we've got some public space here. We've got some public space here, and we have a lot of private space in between. What we prefer to have is one large contiguous open space area. There's also the need to reroute this road. So what we've done is essentially this road is going to come up here instead. There's going to be a small building on this portion, and then there's going to be a dedication for basically everything inside of that road. So can you go to a future, it's the next slide, should probably show you.
So it's essentially the park now is playground is in that.
About half of what is the park now is going to have this building on it. The other half is going to remain park, but then we're going to add all of this.
I see.
We're also going to add the street here. So the idea that it's the trade being discussed, this is what's actually happening, right? A portion is going to have a building on it, a portion is going to be open space, and then we're going to be adding all of this open space here. And then again, Joyce Street's going to get realigned through a part of that as well.
And where's the playground?
Now, I don't know the answer to that. Craig, or Emma, do you know where the playground is?
There is no.
There is no playground?
Okay.
So it's all just,
This is just lawn. Yeah, it's just lawn. I don't know if we can go to the existing aerial, maybe. Am I blocking the screen?
Yeah, there's like a feature, culture.
Yeah, this is all pretty much just lawn and heavily sloped lawn. If you're familiar with it, it's got a really, really steep grade down the street.
So
No, go ahead.
which phase would include the realignment of the road and the new park? Would it be the H3 or the C3 or C2?
Can we go back to the PDSP? Yeah. That's not defined yet, when exactly that's going to happen. My guess is it's going to be the first of these, right? Once we start doing one of these adjacent buildings here, so probably either N2 or C3 when those buildings go forward.
You mentioned that a good percentage of this property that will eventually be donated is significantly sloped. The area directly in front of the Ashley complex has the most severe slope, and it is a slope that will probably render that particular property unusable for recreational purposes. Whereas the Grace Hopper Park land is relatively flat. And that would lend itself to, as we were just talking about a moment ago, a playground. So to the extent that we can maximize the percentage of Grace Hopper Park that's donated to the county, that would certainly put us in a position to address the need for recreational amenities in that location. So I just wanted to mention that. And I appreciate you have N3 going up there, and that's going to gobble up a percentage of Grace Hopper Park. But to the extent that we can maximize the donation of that level ground in Grace Hopper Park to the county, that would put the county in a much better position to actually make use of that property for recreational purposes.
Can I?
Carly had something.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, I just want to say, about like, it's specifically about building a playground or whatever. I know at Virginia Highlands, like right next to there, I used to have a lot of practices there, so I know there's a playground there. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if it's redundant if to propose that or whatever, but I don't know, I just noticed there is like a playground nearby.
Yeah, the playground in Virginia Highlands Park is on that opposite side.
Yeah, that's true.
It's quite a hike to get over there. And it consists of a smallish standard sort of playground.
Yeah, that's right.
And then there's a water park. That's part of that.
So I want to speak directly to the same issue. So, what is the acreage of the space that's gonna move into Virginia Square?
I think we've got, is it 2.77 acres, Bill?
Was it?
2.77.
Okay. And is there a possibility, to Gary's point, of being able to make that slope space as part of building the road less sloped? As in, could we make it
Flat.
what?
Flat?
Well, I wouldn't say it'd be flat, but I mean usable.
Do we have the numbers of the level space?
Yeah, so the new realigned South Joyce, a lot of that actually occurs in some of those most sloped areas. And so and we have to meet the grades up at the Potomac and Ashley, which are at elevation. So a lot of that grade change will actually be the roadway going up and tied into that. So we've approximated, about 80% of what will be donated is pretty usable and programmable space, with a lot of the grade tie-ins happening sort of near the new roadway, realigned roadway. So, I mean, it's all subject to the final grading on those, but a pretty substantial percentage will be available.
So you're expecting that the road will be higher than the park itself, so there'll be there.
The road slopes up to the Ashley.
Yeah.
And basically Joyce Street will be rerouted, so it's directly in front of the Ashley.
Right, so the parking lot is right now in front of it, right? Okay, so I guess so right now you have on the existing property a tennis court and a dog park. Is that correct?
And a pool.
What?
And a pool.
And a pool. Well, that's wasn't my main thing, but yes, you're right, the pool there. And my understanding is that both of those are going away. Tennis court's going away and the dog park's going away, correct?
That's right. The pool is staying for now, but in these
Right.
phases, yes. that's-
But in phase one, those are.
Right.
Wait, okay, so, so those are going away, but the space is gonna be the park is not gonna be added till later.
So if you're saying the park, you're talking about this.
Yeah, yes.
So, yes, those are going to be in later phases. Can we scroll to one of the slides that shows what's delivering in this phase? So, that's correct. The park is not coming until the later PDSP phase.
Okay. So the removal of the dog park and the removal of the tennis court is gonna result in more demand on Virginia Square Park. I'm sorry, Highlands Park. At a time when we can't expand the park at that point. So my concern is that, yeah, you're giving the county this property, but you're also going to be shifting responsibility for recreation to the county as well. And they won't have access to the land to do anything about it. But even if they did, that kind of puts pressure on the county to say, okay, well, now we need to build a dog park on that space so you're basically just shifting responsibility from River House to the county to supply a dog park and increase use on the tennis courts at Virginia Highlands as a result.
So a couple things.
Yeah.
The first is that the tennis courts, right, are not public, right? Those are private tennis courts, right? And,
Yep.
and I don't know about the dog park. I don't know if that's private also, right? So these are, available only to the folks at River House. They're not open to the general public.
Yep.
And so what we're doing instead, right, is providing open spaces, walking past the green ribbon in this area that we think is a sufficient kind of improvement over what's there today in terms of all of the lawns and the streets, parking lots. We're providing, we don't have, about 1.1 miles of pedestrian paths, those green ribbon areas, and those forested spaces. So yes, it's not tennis courts, right? It's a different amenity, but we think that it's replacing the amenity in kind and actually improving it because it's going to be accessible to everybody in the public. You can't shut it down.
Sure, I mean, I understand that, but the thing is, even though it's private use right now, you're adding more residents to this area,
For sure.
who have dogs, have an interest in having a dog park, and who play tennis or pickleball or whatever. And those people will no longer have that private space to use for that purpose. So that's naturally going to fall on Virginia Highlands Park.
That's right. Folks would use the park for the more active, right, and kind of programmed recreational spaces. I think in terms of like the dog areas you can take your dog and be out, I think that there's a huge amount of new space that can be available for that. But you're right, it is different.
Right, and so I'll finish up here, but so that is a concern of mine is that you're basically shifting responsibility to the county for what you currently provide to the residents of that area. So the donation of the land, although appreciated, does it have an impact of saying, oh, you have this land, but now you also have more demand on the park, the park, in order to do that, and you're not going to have it at the same time. You're going to have it after the need for the additional space to provide these recreational amenities is needed.
And I actually have a question for staff, if I can. Marco, Ryan, when you guys did the sector plan, you did an analysis of recreational opportunities and amenities. Does that include the private and determine that it was sufficient and that what was going to be added was sufficient? Does that include private spaces in that or not? Or that's just county facilities?
It's just county facilities. If you take a step back and look at the level of service, the public spaces master plan, it accounts for, on one hand, population demographics and population growth for the current projections the county had at this point in 2017, although we are updating that currently through the refresh process, as you all know. That accounts for population growth and current population and does not include private recreational amenities. So there's that aspect of it. The level of service that we prescribe, the access gaps and the access level of service that Gary referenced in his draft letter already didn't account for the private amenities. So the planning assumptions we have are sort of based on public amenities versus population and potential access. So that's a helpful thing. And then with the sector plan, I kind of built on that analysis and just had some more specific recommendations for depending on the city. Essentially as a table setting for the eventual master plan of Virginia Highlands Park.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay, so if I understand what you're saying correctly, you're saying that that the current Virginia Square Park,
Highlands.
sorry, why do I keep saying that? Highland Park was projected to be able to handle the needs of the community, not factoring in the fact that the current residents have access to some.
Correct, yeah. The level of service the department manages does not include private amenities generally.
Right.
Like a process.
So it's going to be able to provide that even without the.
That's what the analysis.
Okay,
sort of indicates.
and was that based on was that factoring in the fact that they're increasing the population of that area?
So at the time that we did that analysis, no,
No.
because this was not on the plan. However, when we refresh, we do this every 5 years,
Yep.
though it's not a running analysis. So we are doing that now,
Okay.
essentially with the PSMP refresh.
Okay.
There's no guarantee that the actual level of service methodology or targets remain constant with this update. They're also, subject to public input, for example. Is pickleball more important than tennis? Is whatever folks are wanting to see in different neighborhoods as we go through that process.
Okay.
That's probably a politically charged example, forgive me. But
We're used to
to your
pickleball.
point, the new analysis that we're undertaking now will account for population growth and the current population projections, if that's helpful.
But Ryan, but this area is a hotspot. In other words, it's got an access gap, according to that really
nice map that you guys put together. And I realized that was from 2017. And I know, here's another vocabulary word for the people at our table, level of service, okay? That means how much recreation facilities and open space are required. And it's determined by this refresh that we're doing now, and it's based on how many people want to use it and how much acreage is available and things like that.
So along those lines, do you have where do you find that on the website for Arlington County? Because
Public spaces master plan,
public spaces master plan shows this.
page 185.
I mean, looking from like a 10,000 foot view, seems to be an area with quite a bit of recreation, quite a bit of park space. I mean, Virginia Highlands Park is quite large and a quite built up area. I'm surprised to see this area as being a place.
Have you been there on a weekend?
There are a lot of conflicts.
I'll caveat that by saying that there's a lot of exclusivity with its uses. For example, if one baseball park is being used by one group, that's a big section of the park, not just that cannot be used by anybody else. There's a lot of exclusivity because of the nature of the park.
I just want to add that people from all over Arlington use Virginia Highlands Park. It's not just the people in the neighborhood, because that park has 2 soccer-sized fields. That park gets incredible use by youth teams throughout Arlington, and maybe you could even speak to that.
Yeah.
Not just youth, adults as well.
Adults as well. So you can't really just look at that specific neighborhood, because people are descending on that park from all over Arlington.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Sure, I'm glad I don't have to talk about tennis versus pickleball.
That's our.
Figure it out.
that's our-
I had a question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, are you adding any fitness centers or anything along those lines for the 700 units that you're building?
Yeah, good question. The N1 building and the C1 building will both have fitness centers.
So that's 2 new fitness centers in the first phase.
And are they good size to handle the 700 units?
I think they're about, we have the numbers, right? Belle, I don't.
Yeah, N1's over 5,000 square feet and C1's over 1,000 square feet. So they're sized for the residential expectation.
How does that compare to Lover Run, Walter Reed?
I would have to check. I don't know the square footage just off the top of my head. I apologize.
Well, that helps take care of some of that.
I guess I have a bit of a question. I'm a bit, and maybe this goes a little bit beyond the specific sector plan, but I'm a bit surprised that this board talks about the amenities involved in each building, because at the end of the day, I believe you said that the parks are designed as to not factor in the amenities in each individual apartment building. And as a public parks commission, is it really our business to try to look at how many amenities are being put in by private developments? I can understand open space, because open space is something that everybody benefits from in the public easements or in public space. But in terms of like private amenities, is it really our purview?
I think it is, but I mean, that's beyond what we want to have to talk about.
I think we're just trying to get a fuller.
It's something we could talk about in the future.
We could talk about it in the future.
And I think it's also on our checklist.
Of all the active and passive recreation that are going to be available to all these people that are coming in. You get a sense of how much should we expect the existing public spaces, how much pressure should we expect them to receive?
Maybe we need to address the whole policy of not including private recreation.
I mean,
now's a good time.
Well, what's interesting about that is that, I mean, there's also a housing affordability argument to it. If you push for increased amenities in a structure, that also increases the passive or the active costs of maintaining a residential building, which has housing affordability.
I don't think we're pushing anything right now. We're just asking.
Well, again, my thing is that, for example, there's something we don't discuss in the Parks Commission. This seems like something that, is this something that we discuss? I don't know. Maybe that's a discussion for another day.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna call that question.
Of course.
Gary?
Yeah, and because I don't want our guests to have to stay here the whole night. Unfortunately,
fair enough.
Through the rest of these questions here. It was my understanding, based on a meeting that the county had last night, that the rerouting of Joy Street will probably not take place for approximately 5 years or so. If that's basically right.
Don't really have a schedule, I don't think, for the future buildings, right? For those future phases beyond the ones getting approved now, but I think we could probably assume that it would be at some point, after the initial phases are built, which is several years down the road. So that's probably right.
I've already talked about the tree canopy goals. Talked about moving parking lots, areas that are basically just sod. If I could ask how much public space is currently on the River House property, and you can express it at acreage or square footage, whatever.
Open space.
I'm sorry, open space.
Yeah, and I think it's an important distinction, right? Because the only public space is that portion of the park. Everything else is private. We're going to be adding those easements. But Bill, do you have that?
Nothing.
Sorry, I don't know.
So yeah, the lawn right now is about 750,000 square feet. Lawn and invasives along the western edge. And so, yeah, sort of.
750,000?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so, yeah. That's why I was like trying to math. It's a lot. But yeah, looking and replacing, I think, trying to find my exact numbers earlier.
Marco's gonna get it.
It's a pretty, like I said, we reduced that lawn number. I think we have about 380,000 of just native plantings going in, cutting that lawn number in half, which is a monoculture, not really helping our environment. And then, yeah, we still have a substantial amount of lawn though, but still like another 300 plus thousand feet of lawn. So,
we commend you for taking out the grass and the parking lots. Thanks for sharing.
yeah, we really want to create a healthy biophilic site that's gonna stand the test of time, as that invasive edge is going, it's going to fail, pretty soon. And so we want to reestablish that edge.
Okay,
I had a question.
please.
Is there a budget for maintenance? Because as Gary said, what we found with Arlington County's invasive plant removal program, it requires a big upfront cost, but you're never over. You're never done. You have to constantly be battling those invasives. So is there provision in that?
There is a site plan condition related to that maintenance. And I think that's one of the big changes. This is really unusual sites by right now. So basically, a lot of the things that the county regulates through site plan conditions typically do not apply here. So that whole kind of layer, that whole regulatory layer is going to be dropped on top of this property. And among those things will be continued maintenance of those areas.
As native.
I don't know that that is what is in, it is whatever the county's regulations and requirements are. I don't know what those are.
No, I can check with Adam once, the planner, about the specific language in there.
Okay.
I think it references like a landscape manual, and I don't know what's in.
Okay.
I know there'd be the reference guide to the landscape standards.
Has that been implemented now?
It was updated last year.
Yeah, okay, so
So it incorporates a lot of the FR.
that applies all now. Okay, good. That's good. Thank you. Sorry.
Sure. The forested buffer zone along the western edge of the property, is that going to end up being around 30 feet wide, or what are we looking at this?
Sure. Emma, if you mind sharing that. And Bill, the width.
Yeah, it's like most of the portion is, that sort of 30-40 foot dimension.
This part, right?
Yeah, as you go all the way down. The only exception is the south townhouses. And that was part of sort of the study with urban forestry during the LRPC process, that there isn't an existing forest stand in much of that space. And so it also added, there is that utility easement along that edge to sort of increase that buffer dimension. So this is where we landed to maximize that edge.
And will there be stormwater mitigation features installed? And if so, where would those be?
Sure, and one of the really good things, that I mentioned before about this going from a by right to a site plan project, these were built in, I think, the 60s, before there was any kind of stormwater management, and there's that massive amount of impervious surface for the parking lots. This is all going to be upgraded, and not just the new building, the old buildings, but the new ones as well, upgraded and subject to stormwater standards that are in place today. The addition of all these green spaces is going to be a huge help also for treatment and retention of stormwater. So that's one of the big improvements I think that's going to take place with this development.
So I'm going to come back to for some the biggest questions we have. I'll ask probably what will be the second one first, and that is whether the applicant would be open to installing any recreational facilities on the River House property that will be retained.
So that's an open-ended question. What I'm not sure what the ask is there.
So we're losing pretty much all recreational features on the property. The tennis courts will be removed, the dog park will be removed, the pools will be removed eventually. And so the question is, would the applicant be open to either on land that River House retains or land it's gifting over to Arlington County to help contribute to installing recreational equipment on land?
So thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it. So with respect to the pool, that is not going away until a later phase. That's here. So that's going to remain. And when that is removed, it's going to be replaced with pools and recreational facilities and some of the other buildings. So that part stays for now. So it really is talking about the tennis courts and the dog park. We believe that what we're providing in accordance with the plan, in accordance with the recommendations related to the green ribbon, related to the interim open space and the other open spaces, that we're doing all of the things that the plan calls for. What will be done in the future phases, I don't know. What will be done here when we eventually build out this park space, there may be more to it. Part of it also goes into a calculation of community benefits with Arlington County, and there are a number of things that get balanced, right, between transportation improvements, affordable housing, utilities, open space is obviously one of them as well. And in this case, we think that and I think the county agrees that the open spaces we're providing that you see here as part of this green network is the contribution that this first phase is going to be giving toward both green space and recreation spaces.
I think I know the answer to this next question. We'll go ahead and ask it anyway. And that is whether the applicant would be willing to make a contribution to a general park fund for Arlington County. Monies that would be used to create recreational opportunities, services, for residents.
Yeah, so again, at this point, we've kind of done the items that I think I've kind of outlined that are those community benefits that are in exchange for density that are part of what the county is able to ask for when you do a new development. And I do think, part of that is it's got to have a nexus between the development and the improvements itself. So we've tried to keep these on site as much as possible for those.
So just to clarify though, but in the second or third phases or however many there end up being for the site plan, that brings that land from the River House property to the Virginia Highlands Park, there could be a negotiation at that point.
There could be at that point. That's right.
For equipment or money contribution to improve that.
There are going to be a significant number of additional community benefits that come with those future phases that are TBD, and that is one of the potential buckets, right?
But also balance against affordable housing, transportation. all the other ones. Okay, Andrew?
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that this new construction would be good for the tax base of the area. It's gonna massively increase the amount of property taxes collected from that. So we're talking about what is in it, what is supposedly in it for us as the Parks Department. We are going to benefit from the increased revenues from this project. So, and the reason I mention that is that there's definitely, I get uneasy and squeamish, and I've said this before at SPRC meetings, that the idea of a community benefits plan, or at least explicit payments to a department during a time of new development, I get concerned about it at times, because there is this implicit idea that you can't just hand a bunch of money and say, you guys are going to be fine with this project. Not that we have any approval to vote up or down a project, but we need to be careful that the impacts of the project must be what the funding directly considers. Otherwise, it becomes borderline bribery. And that's why we have things like nexuses. That's why we have capital improvement plans. That's why we have structures to try to constrain this to thread the needle. Because, I mean, sure, in an optimal world, we'd probably have existing property taxes pay for all this. We wouldn't be asking for concessions every single time that we do new development. But yeah, we should be, I guess if I have a statement from this, it's that we should also consider the impacts of revenue from the structures themselves. And I think the best time to ask regarding any concessions is every time new development takes place, not when the whole sector plan is created. We should be looking at it when each development takes place. When each
Now you're really off.
Yeah, we're talking about taxes here in a park.
Well, plus, isn't this a question period? We're supposed to be asking.
I'm sorry.
It's
We
already
haven't
been
started our
passed.
discussion.
Well, that is the thing.
That's way off.
Yeah, so we need a discussion period from this or questions. I guess if I have any questions from this, I guess we'll continue. Apologies.
Thank you, Andrew. I do appreciate your thoughtful comments always. You're very welcome.
All right, well, I would like to thank you guys for taking the initiative to come before us. I much appreciate that, and I also appreciate your effort to answer all of our questions.
Thank you, Will.
I think
We're not done.
Really quick question. Sure. We keep on talking about the parking lots. Is there going to be new parking put in the new buildings? Is that what's going to be done?
It's a very good question. Yes, the new parking will be in the new village. For the townhomes, they're going to be garages in there, but yes, the new multifamily will have.
And just to
Anybody else? David?
clarify the first question I asked about the parking in N1 and 2 open space, there's actually a structure there, right? It's not, yeah. So
Yeah, that's also.
that's the constraint. There's a structure, parking structure. The interim space goes as far as the parking structure. To go further, you'd have to take the parking structure down.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we need to decide what we're gonna do. You have a draft letter that was circulated. Want to lead off, or if people want to comment on what was in the letter?
Actually, I'd like to ask Brian a question about, so, as mentioned in the letter, and I don't know if Brian has a copy of that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I saw the draft.
Okay, there's mentioned these red zones where there's sufficient recreational resources for particular neighborhoods. And this area was designated as being in that red zone. But I believe that designation goes back a good number of years. And so what is confusing me right now is Park and Rec planning having decided that there was sufficient recreational resources available in this neighborhood, when on the other hand, we've got this designation as this being a red zone. So I'm trying to figure out how those two can be consistent.
Sure, and I'll try to explain this as best I can. Feel free to stop me and ask further questions, Gary. So the access gap hotspot map in the PSNP is an overlay of all of the other access maps for the specific amenities in the level of service that we have an access-based level of service for. This is probably like kind of wonky, so bear with me, folks. About 11 park amenities in the PSMP that we have access level of service standards for
Access compared to the other.
compared to population base, which we have a few more
Which is a different-
amenities
Those are
that have a
different ways of doing it.
population-based level of service, which is just your population density versus number of those amenities you might need or want filtered through the public engagement, that public comment that we received about people's priorities. What if you kind of dig under the hood a little bit, a couple of the specific amenities come to the fore as being a particular gap in that area. Multi-use trails is one, community gardens is another, I think basketball courts is another. So when you overlay those all into like that summary map, what you really are pulling out in a lot of cases are the more densely populated areas that have, because of their population, because of the diversity of recreational experiences, we're accounting for an access-based gap for sort of a handful of amenities. So that's kind of what you're seeing. And to your point, this was a snapshot taken when we did this analysis before the PSMP was adopted in 2019. So it doesn't necessarily take into account subsequent population increases or projected population increases.
Or additional open space that's been added.
Right, or yeah, to that point, additional facilities or open space have been added. For example, like Met Park or Longbridge Park in this, or Longbridge Aquatic Center, I should say, in this area. So to your point, we will be updating that level of service with this refresh. There may be some new access maps that kind of take all that into account and kind of paint us a new picture. In this case, what we're trying to get at, through the sector plan, through this site plan with the cooperation of the applicant team, is adding space to Virginia Highlands so that when we master plan that, which is on the CIP currently, again, in the out years, but in there, we can accommodate whatever the sort of recreational trends and community needs are once these new developments, not just this one, but others depending on city versus city area are. So I guess the long way of answering your question is, yes, it's an access hotspot, but there's some nuance there about what type of amenities were really driving that analysis. And subsequent to the adoption of the PSMP, other things than just population density have changed, including new park amenities and new parks. So we try to do that refresh analysis every 5 years or so, and we're about to embark on that now with the PSMP refresh. So that's kind of the origin of it. I guess to your point about how you can find this consistent as staff, we're trying to set the table for the Virginia Highlands Master Plan, knowing that's kind of the focal point of the recreational system, the park system in the area, by adding this extra space. And the green ribbon helps address that access level of service trails in the area. So those are kind of the ways that we were looking at it. If that's helpful at all. I'm not sure if I made much sense, but
Yeah, no, I can follow with that. Is there any chance that with the increased density of this neighborhood that's coming, that the time period for when the new Virginia Highlands Park Master Plan will be developed will be moved earlier? Or is 2034 pretty much what we're going to have to resolve ourselves to?
That's actually a question for the board who makes the decision about what to include in the CIP and where. I think from the department's perspective, understanding that there's only a couple of sort of time slots in the CIP, that's large, complex, expensive, frankly, parks capital projects could fall based on the financing and the way the bonding and everything breaks out. We're comfortable with the way it is now. We could be equally comfortable with it being earlier, but that is a board decision. And if that's something you all want to advocate for at CIP time, in light of, for example, your conversations with the applicant, other recent developments in the area, I would encourage you to have that conversation. But it is very, very clearly and technically above my pay grade to make that decision. Yeah,
But it
I
had
think
been, it had been moved.
Yeah, it had been earlier in previous CIPs. It's been moved later. Again, from the PRC perspective, we can work with.
CIP means capital improvement plan, a capital budget that gets improved every 2 years.
And to add on to what Ryan said, that those discussions are actually upcoming within the next year for the next round of CIP discussions, considerations. So, that would potentially be the time to have that discussion as well.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate that.
So what we've written here, Dan, do you want to we suggest as a precondition for approval, that the developer provide a substantial community benefit payment to fund development and restoration of Virginia Park. So there's a few things that we probably should discuss.
Is this for the plan, like the overall plan, or is this for a specific development?
Okay, watch your vocabulary words.
Is the concession, I'm sorry, maybe I'll get.
I'm saying this very as clearly as I can because I'm trying to make sure I get.
Yeah, no, is it the stage, not the stage, maybe stage sector plan? Is this for the entire plan that'll happen in stages, or is this for a specific development? Because they said there were two.
There's two, at least three,
Go.
but the two that we care about, that we have something to say about. It's the big one, the 36-acre one, which gives the maximum density or the certain amount of amenities that are being negotiated. That's kind of the big one. And then there is within that, a site plan condition, a site plan that has the two buildings and the townhouses.
Okay, so are we talking about the second one or the first one? For which one we want to have the.
So we need to
Okay.
make sure that
Okay.
Thank you, Preston.
I think it should be, if we are going to ask for any form of conditional support, it would be for an individual site plan. It would not be for the entire sector, not sector plan. I gotta be careful with my words.
I know, it's
phased
hard.
development
And phased develop, I'm just gonna, PDSP, okay. It should not be for the PDSP, it should be for the site plan, at least in my opinion.
The one that's proposed now or someone in the future?
Well, when it's proposed in the future, it'll come in front of us in the future.
There's one in front of us right now.
Yes, and the one in front of us right now is the one that that we can discuss over the,
That's what the county board is
yes.
voting on, right?
Yes.
Our letters
In
should
3
focus on
days.
that.
And that's the thing, if we're gonna have a letter, we better draft it now.
The big one. That's, it's possible.
Okay, and this is not any point of, or question or point of order. I guess my opinion in that case would be, it would not be for the PDSP. My opinion is that would be for the site plan, because the county commission is
Future
going to,
site plan.
yes, which the county commission is going to be voting on that in a few days, and we are the last commission that this goes in front of before they vote on it. So if we're gonna have a
We're not
letter,
voting on the future site plan, they're voting on this
yes,
site plan with the townhouse.
yes, and that's what I'm referring to.
And you can say your statement one more time.
Okay. If we're gonna ask, my apologies, everybody. If we are gonna ask for like concessions in a letter in exchange for like our tentative support, it would be not for the PDSP, it would be for the site plan regarding the development that the county board is voting on in a few days.
I see. Okay,
Okay,
gotcha. Thank you. And do you think we should?
well, I mean, I think if people know my opinions here, that I'm very skeptical on that. I think there should be a clear nexus. I think I wrote an email to you saying something along the
Yeah.
lines of maybe we should push for to go towards a capital improvement plan.
Right, which we don't have yet. For Virginia Highlands Park. So that sort of pushes the idea.
Well, there isn't a capital improvement for the park.
Say it again?
There isn't a capital improvement plan for the park.
That's
It's one
right.
for the county. So what are you saying we don't have now?
The Virginia Highlands Park is in the capital improvement plan
Right.
for 2032 or 4.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess I misspoke. We do have line items for that in the budget right now, don't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
technically it's in the CIP. There's no
Yeah.
funding for it until 2030.
It's not funded, but there's a
Right.
line established for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do like the draft letter that you put forward. I did like that it mentioned the biophilia benefits. I did appreciate that it mentioned it did mention benefits of the project, which I do support, and I do think that this letter should be in support broadly of it.
Okay.
That'll be one opinion I have. I guess my other opinion that I'll have is if we don't have a very explicit ask, I'm not very comfortable asking for any form of concession, but maybe awareness of future issues as the population goes up. The board should be aware of the future needs of the park,
Okay,
but.
all right, anybody else?
I mean, I'll say that, I think the applicant is clearly focusing on passive recreation and the access points over active recreation, which is completely legitimate. Site needs both. I think our concerns that have come up here is about the loss of active recreation for the residents of the site, and their concern is that this is displaced into the neighboring park, which already experiences a lot of conflicts. And I think that's completely legitimate too. I would love to see playground, basketball court, something that is accessible to the residents that might soak up some of that pressure that is going to be displaced onto the Virginia Highlands Park, something that doesn't take up a lot of space. The dog park is a lot harder to get my arms around. Those tend to take up a little more space. That's clearly going to be an issue. It sounds like the applicant anticipates that the passive walking paths will soak up the use for the dog park. A little skeptical about that, but I can see that hope, that aspiration. But I mean, that's what we're looking at here. Looking at that trade-off, the passive versus active recreation. Again, it would be great if it wasn't a 100% trade-off. If there was some other space there, whether it's a playground for the families that we're expecting to move into the site, or a basketball court or something. I'm glad to hear that there'll be recreation sites inside the buildings, but we're talking about adding a lot of people.
Great. Okay, we're significantly behind time. Is there anybody else with a strong opinion that they would like to talk? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you just pointed out, and I just want to point out that you know, the timing is also an issue too. It's not just that they're putting the burden on the county to provide more active recreation space, but the actual addition of the land, plus the fact that the CIP doesn't have the basketball coming into 2034, means that there's going to be a significant amount of time, a gap in which there's like an increased burden, but not an increased amount of space, or a changes to the park.
It's all front loaded.
Right. And so I think the letter needs to reflect that, first of all. And I think it needs to talk about the conflicts, because I can tell you that dog park, just knowing other dog park issues that have happened in the county over the last several years, that's going to be an issue. There's going to be a conflict if that dog park goes away, when that dog park goes away, that there isn't a replacement for that.
Where is the nearest dog park on public land?
Yeah, there's like an interim dog run or something right there. Whatever.
Yeah, I think there's
Right.
two, yeah, there's two dog parks.
My way. existing residents. Also, to the great for you.
Thank you.
And then if we're also talking about the Pentagon City area, that park also has dog runs.
Just don't get.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to cut you off.
Yeah.
So, does anybody else want to
Yeah,
talk?
I do.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think, taking a look at Gary's letter, which is very well written. I came across the county latest local Parks and Rec Park Master Plans Program 2025-2034. I know we're concerned about park and recreation, but looks like the county ranked 16 projects, and Virginia Highlands Park is, as Adam noted, for 2034, and it's the lowest. So and the county does a very serious look at these things, and they took a look at the population changes, the facilities that are there, But in their judgment, this isn't a screaming hot need, as far as I can tell from the county's own work. So I'm not sure that we should seek a contribution to the general fund. And my suggestion was perhaps if there are enough recreation facilities that are on site that the builder can, meet the needs of the new occupants, we're concerned about new people. How are they going to impact the current facilities? Well, if the new people will be, their needs will be met by, new facilities on the site, then I think our concerns will be assuaged. And in any case, the county's own plans don't seem to have great urgency about putting anything until 8 years later. So I would say, in my view, I don't think we should seek a contribution to a general park fund.
But does this take into account this project?
I would think so. I mean, the county has known about this
Does it?
project.
Does it?
And this is published, it's a published Arlington County, Virginia.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's the right.
Right.
What I'm asking is, does it take into account this project? I know, that would be my.
It would be smart for them to have done it. This isn't something new that happened yesterday.
Yeah. Well, do we have an answer to that question?
Maybe Ryan can.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to the board's decision-making process. I can say that everybody working on this was aware that this project was going on. The sector plan had already been adopted, et cetera. So the inputs were there for that decision-making process.
I'll also point out that since it's a board decision, there are politics in play. Look, big central parks that have a lot of uses and a lot of conflicts, like Quincy and Virginia Highlands, have historically not been ones that the county has been particularly enthusiastic about plowing into for new plans, because they know it's going to be highly controversial and highly confrontational. So and expensive. So they often get pushed back. So we shouldn't take that as a statement of need, absolute statement of need. We might take that also as the county not really being very enthusiastic about doing it, because they know that people are going to get angry.
Well, there's a, but I mean, there's that, but there's that, and that's legitimate. I'm not saying that. But I think there's also the budget considerations. And, I mean, when I first got on this 6 years ago, talked about doing Virginia Highlands Park and Central Park at the same time, and, saving money by doing similar design work and things like that. And, we're doing closer to doing that now than we were then.
Yeah, and I know too. I mean, we have, Gateway Park at 29 million. I mean, we got $1 million for Virginia Highlands Park, and the county approved 24 million in bond authority last year. I mean, they could sell bonds to, if money were the issue. That's my thought.
I just have a
To
question.
make it earlier?
Right.
Yeah,
Well-
they'd have to authorize that. They'd have to decide that they want to pay that debt.
That's a different question.
So it gets into politics and everything.
So I guess I have a question about the structure of this, because I mean, the meeting by the Board of Commissioners is going to be in a few days. If we're going to draft a letter, it is going to have to be now, and it's,
Yeah, we have to decide.
and you finish the letter and send it off in the next day or two,
Yeah,
quite literally. So are we going to have some vote as to what gets included? How are we going to approach this as to what our strategy should be?
yeah, so thank you.
We're having a lot of discussion, but we are an hour and a half into a 2.5 hour meeting, so.
Yeah, so my thought, and I'm open to discussion on this point, but my thought is that we should vote on whether or not we support the applicant's proposal with, and voting on 2 or 3 subtopics as well. Like, do we want to ask for a contribution to the general fund? Do we want to ask for a contribution to Virginia Highlands Park? And is there anything else? Those 2 things? Okay, so go ahead.
I'm not clear on the difference there. Where would the general fund, when you refer to the general fund, where are you referring?
This maybe is where Ryan can assist us. In terms of
The Department of Park and Recreation General Fund.
For use anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just so it's clear, I wasn't proposing necessarily that we ask them for a contribution. What I'm asking for them to resolve that gap, resolve that conflict. How would they propose that we address that?
I mean, well, so are you saying that you want us to write to the county board and say they shouldn't approve this unless this gap is resolved? Because that's
Yeah.
all we have time for. We have 3
Yeah.
days. Okay,
Which is, I like the way that Alex added a little bit of specificity. Kind of either or, $1 and we'll solve the problem, or solve the problem with whatever facility is adequate. Which I think is where.
okay.
I guess I'll make a motion that in the letter, we support the plan, the sector, the PDSP. We support the PDSP. I think we should include that in the letter. Should we have that as a vote? And then we can have some various subtopics regarding the site plan in particular and the payment and whether we should ask for a payment.
My support for it is contingent on whether or not we also ask for that. So it'd be kind of hard for me to.
lock you up first.
All right, let's take your motion first. So what we have, I think, if I may restate, there's a motion on the table to support the PDSP on the condition that the gap in the timing of the access to the parks is resolved, either by paying money or by providing amenities on the site.
I'm not sure I understand what the gap is. Can you?
The gap between when the burden on the county to provide additional active recreational space for the new residents would come into effect, which would be in this first phase, versus when the county would have the ability to respond to that. Due to both the fact they're not going to have access to the property and there isn't a plan for the park to be upgraded until 8 years in the future.
Yeah, I'm not sure. that-
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, short-term construction impacts are exactly that, short-term, and this is a long-term project. That'll
Okay,
last for
you can
decades.
vote against it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that's the motion on the table.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All opposed? So there's 3 no's. Okay, so the motion carries. So can you write that up?
Yes. So with you to make sure I got it right.
Good.
Okay. Is there anything else we need that we talked about a lot of things. Are we missing anything?
Are we talking about the conditional payment that we voted on? Was it based on just the construction impacts, or was the conditional payment on going towards the fund for?
It's for both the near-term site plan and for the PDSP
Both of them, we combined them.
combined. I think we did.
Did we? I don't know if that was.
Yeah, we did because one of them has to do with when the parkland gets contributed to Virginia Islands. So it has to do with both of them.
Okay.
Yep. Everybody is uncomfortable as can be. All right, can we go on to the next thing on the agenda? Sorry for that kind of convoluted decision making. Yeah, thank you guys so much for.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we're way behind time. And so I'm going to speed things through. I'm going to take something out of order. I want to talk about the end of year report and the plan of action. Did anybody have any comments on those drafts? Hearing none, I'd like a motion to adopt those draft letters.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then I'd like to talk about the the community foundation letter that William worked on. Is there any objection to that letter?
It was a good letter.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so that's out of the way.
I could also get into the tentative meeting schedule if you'd like. right
Okay,
now.
yeah, real quick. Yeah, and then Kai, then you're gonna have the rest of the time. If you're still there.
I'm still here.
Great, thank you so much, and bear with me, it won't take that long.
No worries.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
So in the spirit of taking things out of order, tentative meeting dates for the 2026 PRC meeting. So what I have done here, and you'll see that also on the agenda. Again, we're scheduling in both hybrid and virtual only meetings as per the virtual meeting policy that we have, that we had previously readopted in July of 2025. We're allowed, I guess, for our commission up to 6, but we'll be providing one virtual only meeting every quarter. Here it's detailed as January, April, July, and November. Also detailed here are potential meeting dates or meeting timeframes in which we would have a joint Sports Commission and Park and Recreation Commission meeting that we usually have every year. I'll be coordinating with the Sports Commission chair as well as their staff liaison to see what time or date in February or March would be the best. So then once I have that information, I'll share that with the commission. In terms of where we would be meeting, we would be meeting still here in the Cherry Conference Room during our hybrid meeting dates. We'll have a Teams link as we usually do for all of our meetings, except for the August field trip, which we've identified here as either August 18th or August 25th. And of course, later on next year, we'll have a larger discussion as to what that field trip may consist of, where you would want to go and visit, what staff may be involved in order to provide us a tour of a particular facility or park. So we'll have that discussion later on next year. Another thing worth noting is that there are some conflicts with the county board recess meeting, and those happen in March, in May, and also in November. The one for May is, I guess, for the lack of a better word, intentional, because in April, and I'll get into this a little bit later, the Park and Rec Commission will be considering a vote for a nominee for the 2025 Bill Thomas Park Volunteer Service Award. So then, because of that vote in April, the county board will have that recognition as well as ceremony at their recess meeting on May 19th. And that will also be the same evening that we will have our hybrid meeting for the Park and Recreation Commission. So everything would happen all at once. The recess meeting for the recognition of that award, few-hour gap in between, and then the PRC meeting right after that at 7
An
p.m.
opportunity for us to have a social gathering like we did last year.
If you would like, that is certainly an option. And then I think those are the main points, unless there are any questions so far regarding this schedule or anything related to conflicts or other sorts of scheduling items.
Do we need to?
No, this is just something for your information. What'll happen is once the county board adopts its own schedule at their New Year's meeting, which I think is the day after the New Year holiday, I will then finalize these dates and we'll share that with the commission as part of the January meeting agenda.
Great, thank you so much.
But January 20th is definite.
So far, that is the date that we're targeting, yes.
Okay, how would that possibly change? Just for legal.
So if
For people who have.
if the county board were to make any sort of changes to their schedule, we would likely know about that at the end of December into early January.
Okay.
If I have any information about that, I'll share that with the commission.
Okay.
But right now, I think these dates are pretty solid.
Okay. All right, let's give it
Thank you.
to Kai Robinson. She's a person that I met when I was on the board of Eco Action Arlington, and she provided training called Dialogues in Racial Equity, which I found extremely helpful and thought that you guys would like to know about it. Kai, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Jill. And I will still try to stick to our 20-25 minute discussion. Appreciate being part of this meeting that you all are hosting. I've never joined as an individual, and fascinating to hear what you all discuss. So thank you for illuminating me and increasing my knowledge base. I have a lot to share with my family after we finish here. So
I'm sorry.
the ins and outs, how sausage is made, right? So again, I'm a neighbor of Jill's. I'm speaking to you here today as a really community volunteer about the Arlington County Dialogues on Race and Equity program, which I've been a part of since it kicked off about 5 years ago. Again, don't work for Arlington or represent any other organization, but we thought this Dialogues on Race and Equity program might be of interest to you all in the work that you do, because you touch on a lot of the topics related to policies and programs and how people have access. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and tell you a little bit about the program, do this really like a sneak peek of what's involved, and then we'll have a little time for conversation. While I'm pulling my screen up, did anybody look at the video? I think Marco, you shared a video about 2-minute video on.
Yes.
Anybody left in?
Yes, that video was a little silly, but yes.
It's silly, and it makes a kind of a broader point I'll share in a second. Let's see, am I sharing the right? Sorry, I was busy talking, didn't pay attention to what I was sharing. Let me stop sharing and reshare again. Screen. It's late, so now I'm gonna have to make my brain think more actively on whether I'm sharing the right thing. Nope, don't want to do screen. God darn it, sorry. I want window. I share things all the time in my work, but usually not at this hour. All right, there we go. So you should be seeing quick overview slide.
Yes.
Anybody not seeing it? Okay, great. Let me know if it
It's a
needs to
little
be bigger or
small
not.
though, but
All right.
Presentation mode.
How about
presentation mode.
that?
That's
Good?
perfect. Yes, yes.
If I go into screen share mode, I lose the ability to see you all, so that's why I have it here. So the Dialogues on Race and Equity program is something that the county developed 2020-ish in response to its broader commitment to racial equity. And so, I don't know how many of you read the racial equity, the 2019 equity resolution, but it is something that the county board has in place. And this has been in response to that. And what it was really a informal community-based program intended to create a safe space for the community to talk about what is racial equity? What does it mean? What are the historical policies that have led to inequities, and really have this shared understanding, some shared terminology, some shared knowledge on what are we even talking about. And a lot of counties and cities and others across the nation have been grappling with the kind of historical policies, right? The things that happened, a lot of them before, like, our time. To create racial inequities in things like food security or housing security, as well as leading to other disparities in access to healthcare or education or recreation for that matter. And so again, this is intended to normalize conversations about what do we even mean by equity, what is bias, what is privilege, how do these things play out, and why. And so I myself struggled with understanding this topic. And so when the county created this program, I raised my hand to be a volunteer to learn about the curriculum that they use. And typically there's modules that I have facilitated now a dozen times for both Eco Action Arlington, which is one of the groups I'm part of, and then also as a knock-on facilitated these conversations on race and equity. What are we really talking about with a couple other groups as well, like the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust, a group at the APS. So my role here is very much to share with you what these programs are about. It's an open offer. I facilitate them as a volunteer. It's part of my public servant type activities in my extracurricular time. And the curriculum is something that was developed by Arlington County along with this nonprofit group called Challenging Racism. So there's a lot more on the website. You have the slides you can look at afterwards if you want to dig in deeper. But it's all online and at the county. But I'm going to share a few highlights for you all from what's involved and how this program kind of plays out. So there are these partners that have been referred to as the DRE, Dialogues on Race and Equity Together partners. There's a large group of about 60 who initially signed up to say, yes, I'm interested in having these conversations within my organization. They had access to the same materials that I've used in this curriculum to talk about the issues of 3 parts, really: privilege, bias, and equity. And then there's a smaller group that's continued with the discussions that are the current partners, and I've circled the ones here that you may have crossover with, just to say that these are some of the groups that have been actively talking about race and equity in their organizations and how it plays out. So everybody from the APS to Eco Action Arlington, the National Landing Bid, Northern Virginia Conservation Trust, the YMCA. These are all groups who've, again, actively been trying to educate themselves and educate their broader community. In the program of DRE, there are these toolkits that have been developed, and they're, again, online. There's a toolkit on privilege, one on bias, one on equity. They're self-guided. You can download the kit, the curriculum yourself and just use it. You can use it with your family if you wanted to. But it's a series of 3 modules that are each 1 hour. So typically what I've done is combine the privilege and the bias module, and we have a 2-hour discussion on an evening, very interactive, very safe, very kind of safe, and actually all online, so people actually, don't have to travel. It tends to work pretty well to have these conversations over Zoom. And if you can see on the right-hand side of this slide as well, there's a lot of data that may be useful to some of the work you all do. Maybe you already use it on racial equity in Arlington. There's a racial history timeline, as well as a race and ethnicity dashboard. I'll show you a few things from that are particularly interesting, I think, to maybe the work you do. Before I do that, the toolkit, again, just to give you a sample of the contents. This is, there's a leader guide, a participant guide, there's slides. So what I have done is taken these guides and slides myself, and when I facilitate a conversation, I've modified a few things to find videos that are a bit more interesting, and also just have my own kind of personal imprint on how I like to lead conversations. But the general guidelines that are in the toolkit is what I follow, and what, it's all laid out, like you can see on the right-hand side. On the top there, there's a whole table of contents and a leader guide on how much time to take for the conversation and activities, so it's quite interactive. And again, tend to combine the privilege and bias conversations because the two hang together. And then the discussion about equity tends to be a separate 1-hour discussion. And an important point I just want to call out in the bottom right-hand side is that for the dialogues, there is a presumption that that we are not discussing really whether racism exists or whether it's systemic or whether it's real. It goes on the assumption that racism does exist. Historical policies have influenced, had segregation elements to it, and so racism is systemic. We define what systemic racism is, and that we're working to eliminate racism to create a more just and equitable world. So that is the going-in assumption for people joining the conversations. A few things, like I mentioned, that the county has as resources. This racial history timeline, for instance, has a lot more details. And again, this is just an excerpt, but I think for a lot of conversations you have that are about places and neighborhoods. For those of you who didn't know, I found this fascinating when I first learned about it, 10 years ago or so. I did not realize there were restrictive covenants in Arlington that literally say, no persons of any race other than the Caucasian race shall use or occupy any building or any lot. That was put into place, and this is from the Bluemont neighborhood in 1938. There are other covenants that said only people of the Christian faith and white may occupy certain buildings. And in fact, where I live, that was the case. I've got Judaism in my background. I would not have been allowed to live where I live today. So, or at least own a home. And, as a female, there's a whole other different issue related to that potentially, but those are covenants that were in place. They were in place for 30 some odd years until the Fair Housing Act. But if you look in deeds, you still see a lot of these listed. So just to keep in mind that this is kind of in our backyard, covenants that impacted then the ability for people to generate equity in homes, access to wealth that comes from having a home, and it ripples into all sorts of other issues related to property taxes and what gets invested in a certain community. The other piece that's of interest, perhaps if you haven't seen it, is Arlington's race and ethnicity dashboard, where you can look at a snapshot of the Arlington populations. Gives you context to understand where are there disparities and differences. It's a baseline, and as importantly, it's a resource that when you ask yourself these questions, I don't know if you guys all ask these 5 questions when you go through decisions, but it's a useful set to say, you know, who benefits, who's burdened, who is missing, how do we know, and what do we know? Oh, sorry, what do we do? And that's, you know, we tend to look around us and have groupthink when we look a certain way, and if we don't think beyond kind of the population that we ourselves experience, we often don't, you know, through sheer just lack of, you know, what we don't know, see who may be burdened, for example, or who might not be at the table, who is impacted by certain decisions. So there's lots of statistics here. You know, the one that I just pulled out as an example on the bottom is that from a poverty level, 7% of Arlington's residents are below the poverty level because of inequities historically. By race, 14% of Black or African American residents who identify as such are below the poverty level, 13% of Asian residents, and that's triple the rate of white residents who, when you just pull out white residents, that's a poverty, below poverty is just 5%. So, and useful statistics to look at and better understand the county that we live in, and how race plays out. So that's quickly the overview and background of the initiative. I was going to show this 7-minute video that was put together by the Alliance for Housing Solutions, which is 7 minutes. So everybody feeling up for watching a video?
Yeah, we got popcorn.
We literally.
Sorry?
We have popcorn.
Oh, there we go. Grab your popcorn and and settle in. This is a video it's about race in Arlington. It was put together again by the Alliance for Housing Solutions, and it's part of the modules that I facilitate on privilege, as was the left-right-handed discussion. That's also part of like the privilege we might live in if you are right-handed, and everything is designed for a right-hander. The very much is not designed for the left-hander. So let me show the video, and then we can have a discussion and any questions about what I've shared or about the video afterwards, if that's good. So I'm gonna stop sharing this and pull over to the video. Let's see, this should work. Gotta pull up the right link to include sound so you can all see this. All right, let's see if this works. Can you hear it okay?
Can't see anything.
Okay.
We're still not seeing or hearing anything.
You're not?
Nope.
All right. Interesting. Let me go back. Share. One more time, try that. All right, let's see.
Now we see it.
Can you see it? Okay, I'm going to try to go to full screen. Let's see what happens.
African
How's that?
Americans have lived
Yes,
in
we hear it
Arlington
too,
for generations.
Perfect.
Their stories are unique, but the forces that shape their lives and communities are mirrored in the practices of segregation all across the nation. Some of Arlington's earliest African American landowners were the Syphax family, which lived on the Arlington House property in the early 1800s, and the Jones family, settling in Green Valley in 1844. During the Civil War, the federal government established Freedman's Village as Arlington's first planned community. It thrived until 1900, before the federal government closed it to create Arlington Cemetery. Many residents relocated to the nearby settlement of Queen City. Halls Hill in North Arlington began in 1881 when Basil Hall began selling land to former slaves. By 1900, 38% of Arlington residents were black, living in 12 settlements throughout the county. As Arlington grew in the first half of the 20th century, most of these black communities were pushed aside in favor of white suburban development. New suburban communities were being built at a rapid pace, both single-family homes and garden apartments, but they were not available to African American residents. One tool frequently used in Arlington and other communities was a deed restriction, usually put in place at the time a home was built, limiting the home's use to members of the Caucasian race. In the 1930s, the residents of the whites-only Fostoria and Waycroft neighborhoods built a 7-foot-tall cinder block wall separating themselves from Halls Hill, cutting off most access points to the established black community. This kind of wall would have been helpful for obtaining financing from the Federal Housing Administration, which at the time viewed different racial groups to be inharmonious. Around the same time, communities around the nation began to put in place a new kind of land use regulation known as zoning. By 1938, the county had used this tool to ban row houses, which were primarily used by African Americans. Though this style provided housing opportunities for many people and was common in Washington, D.C. and Alexandria, it was viewed as distasteful in Arlington. Building the Pentagon in the 1940s struck another blow at Arlington's black community when residents of Queen City and East Arlington were evicted to make way for the building's road network. Many eventually settled in Green Valley. By mid-century, only 3 African American neighborhoods remained in Arlington. Because of their long history and stable population, home ownership in these areas was common. But these were the only areas within the county where blacks could live. During the Civil Rights era, physical and legal walls began to crumble. School desegregation came first, but open and fair housing laws would take another 10 years to achieve. In 1965, a group of 2,500 volunteers in Northern Virginia conducted the most extensive fair housing campaign the United States had seen, collecting 45,000 signatures by going door to door. Then, in the wake of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, Congress finally passed the Fair Housing Act of 1968. When it came to renting, buying, or financing housing, it would no longer be legal to discriminate on the basis of race. 2 months later, Arlington County became the first jurisdiction in Virginia to pass a local fair housing ordinance with a vote of 3-2. The meeting was briefly disrupted by a member of the American Nazi Party, which was headquartered in Boston. The following year, Arlington's ban on row houses was removed from zoning policy. Much has changed in the 50 years since. Arlington has become home to a population of immigrants from around the globe. But despite these changes, most areas of Arlington have remained the same as they were when they were built during the days of Jim Crow and legal segregation. In fact, in many ways, zoning rules that govern Arlington's low-density residential areas have become more restrictive over time, while only a small part of the county's land was made available to meet the growing housing needs of the area. Today, many residents of Arlington's historically black neighborhoods have aging homes that often don't comply with zoning laws that were put in place after they were built. The squeeze of outdated zoning, gentrification, rising housing prices, and lack of options have forced many of Arlington's black residents to leave. Now Arlington, like the nation, is taking a hard look at its past. It's time to ask ourselves if we are ready to dismantle the walls of indifference once and for all, and build in Arlington where people of all walks of life are welcome and can afford to live.
Well, it's a very nice video. I like the end emphasis on zoning, given that we are in year 3 right now of a court battle regarding whether we should even allow mixed and missing middle housing on most of Arlington. There's a very large number of our immediate neighbors who are still engaging in that legal battle. So the past is present.
I'd love to hear comments and thoughts other people have on this. What's new? What was new here to you? Did you know all this? I frankly did not before I watched it. Do you have any additional comments like the gentleman, I think your name is Andrew, I heard earlier mentioned? What do people think? What do people think about this? Again, comments and opinions, or just what you learn?
I mean, I thought it's nice to have something that's focused locally so that you can kind of bring this subject. You think about it in other places, but you know, all this happened here in Arlington as well, and it's both. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's comforting because it's not comforting, but it's good to know that this community, this county is facing this and not saying, oh, you know, we're Arlington, we're not, you know, we didn't have this kind of stuff happening here when they very well did. So it's really good to see that.
So the other thing, my dad was actually chair of COG, Council of Governments, in the early 60s. We first bought in Arlington. My parents were shocked because that was the racist bastion. In the early 60s, it was just brutal in Arlington. In fact, the preschool that our kid went to was originally set up to be white-only preschool. Yeah.
Yeah, my house, I have a house that's built in 1938 and it has a house file, just a simple paper file of all the documents, and it has the covenant in there. And also watching a program about Arlington schools. I think after the segregation vote went down to desegregate the schools, the Arlington schools shut the schools down for a number of months, if not a year, protest of that decision. So I think Andrew's comment is quite valid. Things are still percolating to this day, and I think it's good that leaders are trying to face these issues.
On a personal note, I'll just say that my park, where I'm a park steward at Upton Hill, is the location of the picture that we saw of the American Nazi Party. It was actually at what's now Upton Hill property, and they finally got evicted. And anyway, it became a park. So
I was walking around the Langston Recreation facility, a community center, and we're looking at this is on the Commission on Aging. So about the sidewalks and how they're uneven, and so a couple of my colleagues joined on it. They were residents of the Halls Hill area, and they were both African American ladies, and they said, yeah, they remember when the junior high was integrated, but since they were African American, they could only go to Washington Liberty, but not Yorktown, and you know you know, by law you can have equality, but people still had hard feelings, and but the good end of the story is, you know, the legal segregation has gone, but you know, economic and other, you know, we can't change what's in people's hearts, but hopefully things are better.
great.
The video did make a good point, though, that the legal restrictions on land ownership and so on have lasting effects to this day. Because people were not allowed to vote the wealth that others were.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes up, for example, in the Pentagon Hotel site plan that I worked on, it's right next door to a very long-standing African-American church with a very,
Active.
well, they were active. They
Yeah.
have a big daycare center, but they also have a historic graveyard with really important personages of African-American descent. And so, you know, I've been working on the site plan and we had to make sure that the site plan didn't disturb, you know, that create, you know, kept the graveyard ambiance the way they wanted it. So anyway, Kai, this is really great. I'm sorry we stuck you at the end.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
I was wondering how much the current federal antagonism toward DEI has impacted this program or may impact this program at least in the short term.
Yeah, it's a great question. Probably better placed for the Arlington staff who coordinate it. That said, the conversations about privilege and bias apply whether we're talking about anything really. You know, just it's under and that's part of the reason I like it is like, yes, you know, there's included a video that's very specific to Arlington, very specific on race. That said, when I've held these conversations, kind of everybody has a certain form of privilege, which is why I kind of like that cheesy left-right-handed video. How many of you are left-handed in the room? Anybody? Yeah. And so, okay, so I'm guessing you probably were not surprised by what you saw. Those of you who are right-handed, was anybody surprised by what they saw who are right-handed?
No, my wife's left-handed, but
yeah, and you didn't all look at it, but watch the video and see if you're, as a right-hander, you're like, oh, I did not realize that microwaves were made for right-handers. That all the touchpad is all right on the right-hand side. So much of what we do presumes right-handed majority, and presumes that that's the norm. And so this concept of like privilege it's a loaded term. It's a horrible term, but there's this historically afforded advantage that people who are white facing have from the policies that were put in place. Same thing with there's an advantage that we right-handers do have on a lot of fronts. It's nothing we asked for. It wasn't like we earned it. It was just this, you know, unearned outcome of policies that have been put in place without thinking about maybe our biases, which is why I like the link to biases, because we're biased to what we know. Like that's the human condition. We are all biased, no matter who we are, where we live, what we do, what we look like, what we think about. We all have biases, and recognizing that we have a bias helps like in interpersonal spousal relationships, which is why this extends beyond just like in quotes what people have labeled DEI. It's about understanding how other people live and how that impacts the decisions we make, and how our biases and privileges can be helpful or get in the way. So that's a long-winded way of answering that. I don't know, you know, the county's still investing in this. That said, I've been trained in the curriculum and I've given it. So I do this as a volunteer. So there's kind of, you know, it doesn't have to be approved, I guess. I don't know. I mean, the website's still active and the toolkits are online.
Well, I just want to just say thank you so much for coming and sitting through all that long discussion about River House, and invite everybody around the table, you know, whether you're involved in a Rotary Club or a religious organization or people in your neighborhood who just want to get together. This is something that, you know, you can do. We can't do it as a commission because we did, for example, when we did it at Eco Action Board, and, you know, it brings up some personal stuff that you just don't want to have on recording. And it doesn't lend itself well for, you know, deep, thoughtful reflection. But that's what it's like when you do it with the guided person such as Kai. So thank you, Kai, so much.
Yes, definitely. And thank you all for letting me talk to you. Much appreciate it. If you want to contact me, Jill has my email, Marco has my email. I'm happy to just have a conversation and, about any part if you think, maybe interesting to a certain group. And it's usually facilitation is like 10 to 12 people, but no more than 12, usually no less than 8, just to get a size of people to chat. And enjoy the rest of your evening and the popcorn that hopefully you will get somewhere along the line too.
Thank you, Kai. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kai.
All right. Thanks.
We
Bye.
just have one more.
And just to add on that, on the meeting chat, I did include a link to the county's dialogues on race and equity page, just for your reference as well.
Is the video there too?
I think it is.
I think it may be there. I
Yeah.
think all of the
It's in the-
materials that have been presented on, that have been discussed about this initiative is on that webpage.
It's in the dashboard.
Yep, you have to click through the toolkits. I'm happy to share it with you too, but yeah, they're all in the. You have to drill down a few steps into the leader guide or the participant guide, and that's where you'll see the video links.
Okay, thank
In
you.
fact, I'll drop the video into the chat real quick here. Do you want me to Marcus? Should I stay on? Are you still going to be talking about 2026? I'm happy to just as a citizen listen to what.
Oh
you're
no, we
talking about.
just did that actually right before this.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
We're
That's
getting
quick.
to the Bill Thomas thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have, thank you to Carly and Dave, our newest commissioners, since Jeff and Bill Thomas Board Committee, and Marco has a lot to say about that. Before you
Yes.
do it, Marco, I want to also say we're going to be welcoming Jeff and Sarah, a new, both of them are going to be appointed in December, is my understanding.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
well, then we'll have a full commission.
Well, thank you, Jill. So again, just emphasizing what I said earlier about the tentative schedule for next year. So Carly and Dave will be participating as the co-chairs for the 2025 Bill Thomas Park Volunteer Award recognition. That'll also be supplemented by two additional members, potentially a member of staff, as well as potentially someone either who has previously won the award or another potential participant. So once I have more opportunity to discuss that with the staff and also with the committee, we'll share that information more in terms of the composition of that group. Just to reemphasize again, the timing, this is likely going to be a process where we'll be gathering potential nominees or soliciting the opportunity for folks to submit for those nominees within the next few months. And then from there, the selection committee will review those potential nominees and come up with a recommendation that then they will present at the April 14th PRC meeting, which is a Tuesday, one of our Tuesday PRC meetings. It's a virtual only meeting, so we will likely meet the meeting quorum in order to vote on that potential nominee. And then from there, staff and others will begin the process of organizing the ceremony, as well as all of the other meeting logistics related to that, including contacting the potential winners, and then anyone else that would like to participate in the recognition ceremonies. Again, we're starting to plan all of that out, but we're detailing as of now that could potentially be at the Tuesday, May 19th recess county board meeting. But again, if any of this information changes, or if there's any other details that I'll share with the PRC, I'll make sure to include more information at our next meeting.
Great. And so be thinking about who well, actually, you two aren't allowed to nominate. You have to choose them. But, in general, spread the word that we're looking for nominees.
And then I believe, Dave, you might have.
Just
Oh, yeah,
just a
yes.
minute.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will share my screen.
So I just wanted to introduce a site plan with a new park that is coming forward now on Langston Boulevard. It's the Walgreens site at the intersection of Kirkwood and Langston Boulevard. And Melissa will be participating in the second SPRC meeting next week. And in the lower corner here, there is a 5,000 square foot park. And we'll show you a second picture of it, but you can see the blow up on the right side, a little bit more detail. There is a structure, a sculpture in the bottom corner of in the middle of the field there at the bottom, right at the end in this circular area. and then walkways, some passive seating areas, lots of trees, and some green sod areas. This is a little different than their initial design, which had it kind of segregated into two areas. That is a secondary entrance to the building where that arrow is. The primary entrance is on the Langston Boulevard side, which is the other side. This is I think it's a 12-story residential building. So I just wanted to show it to you. If you have any questions or comments that would potentially inform our participation in the second SPRC meeting when Melissa attends next week, please contact me or Melissa. Here you can see some visualizations of what the renderings, what this would look like. So it's a kind of a pastoral setting, 5,000 square foot. There is also a walkway on the western side, which they have enhanced with benches and lighting.
That's the one next to the I-66.
I was gonna say pastoral sitting next to.
Yes, next to the I-66 ramps, but it goes straight out to Langston on that side of the building. So you could see it's got multiple uses, not only for people going kind of through the site, but also circulation.
Image D looking down Kirkwood?
Yeah, Kirk would be on the left there, right? Those walking couple would just be on the edge of the park, going into the park, the sidewalk there.
So this is Langston and Kirkwood and Spout Run?
Yes.
And which corner is it on?
It's on the
Corner with the vaping place.
south, yeah, it's right near the
pawn shop?
It's next to the pawn shop.
Yeah, they wanted to get the pawn shop building, but they couldn't.
Yeah.
Historic or something?
So Dave, I think the view on C, I think that road is Kirkwood, and then beyond that is, I think, where the trees are, beyond that is 66.
Yeah, beyond the trees, looking straight would be 66, left would be Kirkwood.
Yep.
That's a little drop off area here. So just wanted to flash that up, let you know that that's coming. If you have any comments or initial questions, really questions, let us know, Melissa and myself. I also did the Waverly Ridge walkthrough yesterday, and there's a 10,000 square foot park there. SPRC on that will be January. That one looks great too. So I think we've got some nice facilities coming.
Great, thank you, David. Thanks for modeling this. I think this is a great thing that we should all be doing, is bringing the sites to the group just on an informal basis, so that we're not getting hit at the end with the need to write a letter and put it in.
See, they give Gary the hard ones.
5,000
Gary,
why did you do that?
5,000 feet.
So, yeah, thank you, Dave. Thanks to everybody. Okay, is there anything else we need? Okay, we just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Anybody want a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank
Really
everyone
appreciate it.
and
It was a
everyone
good
online, and
discussion.
happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Good.